Let's get started. As I said, I'm Councilwoman Carol Burrs, and I have the pleasure of chairing the Budget and Finance Committee for the Chattanooga City Council. I'm really excited to be kicking off today's event. It's our BFO kickoff, Budgeting for Outcomes, and I want to take you back to last spring when we heard from a lot of people in the community, many stakeholders, people who live here, live all over the city, that they wanted to be more of the process. And so we've worked very hard to make sure that that happens. So today we've opened this up for all of you. As I said, there are over 230 of you registered, and you are right at the very beginning. What we're going to have today is a few words from Mayor Burke talking about the process, and we're going to talk about performance measures. If we vote for funds, we ought to make sure they're going for what you said you wanted. We're going to talk about the challenges that we've had this year with the tornado, with COVID, and why it's so important that our budget be accurate, be inclusive, and be equitable. We're going to talk about the things we've learned, and we're going to talk about dates and stages, and want you to be part of all of it. Please make note of November 9th, 12th, and 16th from 5:30 to 7, because that's when we're going to have engagement, your engagement, part of the process, and we'll be telling you more about all of that. So before we go any further, I want to turn this over to Mayor Burke. Mayor Burke has been our leader in this process. He's done a very important job with this process. And thanks for being here. Love to hear from you. Want to know any other ways we can include you. And now, Mayor Burke, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm so glad that all of you are attending our Budgeting for Outcomes kickoff. Just want to take a minute and remind everybody how Budgeting for Outcomes started. See, I believe that the most important thing that city government does is put together our budget. It's our blueprint for the next year of what we're going to do. So it's not just a document about funding, it's also our policy document, and it says what is important to the constituents that we have. And so from the very beginning, the idea was we're going to spend our money in the way that is most efficient for each and every taxpayer in our city. And any dollar that is wasted is something that is bad for our community. And so Budgeting for Outcomes has been essential to us for the last 8 years and has really changed our budget to make sure that we're prioritizing the outcomes that people will receive in these crucial areas. On top of that, we take our mission as we look at this. Our mission is to break down the barriers that prevent people from living the life that they want in our city. And our department heads and you as agencies have understood that over the last few years and submitted to us offers that are wonderful in trying to accomplish this mission. And I want you to know, we look at these extremely closely, from our executive team to me as we put together our final budget. In this world of COVID, it is more important than ever that we are efficient with our dollars, because here at the city, we know that we're going to struggle with our revenue numbers. We're funded in large part by sales tax and hotel motel tax, both of which have taken a huge hit this year. So as we start this process and set forward in motion the next budget for next year, let's all take a hard look at what we're doing, make sure that we are accomplishing our tasks in the most efficient way possible, put forward bold ideas about what can happen over the next year, and understand that with so many of our constituents facing really tough times, budgeting for outcomes is imperative in 2021. Thank you all very much for what you do for our city every day.
Hello everyone, my name is Tim Moreland. I am the Director of Office of Performance Management and Open Data. I do a lot of the data work for the city, basically try to figure out how we can make our operations more citizen-focused and data-driven in our service delivery. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the data components of the BFO process, specifically around performance measures. So the BFO process generally starts with us setting our priorities, figuring out what we want to do for the year. That we're going to have some community meetings that will help set those. After that, we start shifting to building the budget. That's when we look at how much money is available, where we can do with our priorities, where the revenues are, and how we allocate those to different results areas. And then we're going to go through the budget review and approval process with the community and the council. And once the budget's approved, we then shift into delivery, right? So now we have our budget. We're going to start delivering on those services and programs that we've budgeted for the year. And throughout the year, we'll be monitoring and looking at the data and seeing how things are going and hopefully making pivots and changes during the year to make improvements as time goes on. And then it cycles all back again with resetting, looking at our priorities, and starting the budget process. It's a cycle. So we have a budget cycle that we do every year as part of this. So why performance measurement? So performance measurement is integral to the BFO process for a couple of different reasons. One is that we see data as a compass to let us know how things are going. It's a compass, not a grade. It's directional. It shows us where we are. It shows us kind of how far we are from the destination or where we want to get to. And it provides kind of landmarks along the way to figure out if we're going in the right path and making progress as we thought we should. It's also diagnostic. It can really help you understand what's going on. Where are you seeing problems? Where are the symptoms? How can you do some root cause into what's happening? The data can tell you that. And it can also tell you maybe where the best solutions might lie as well. So it's directional, it's diagnostic, and it's something you can do in real time so that as the programs and services are developed, you can actually see how you're doing and make tweaks and changes to improve them. So one thing we're hoping folks will do and look at this year is linking your performance measures to your service offerings. So if you're an agency, the programs that you have, or if you're a department, the services and programs that you offer. So in the case of IT, they do lots of different things, but they have a help desk, they have application development where they actually build apps, they have a project management team, they have security, they have infrastructure team. So you might want to think about having a service, all the different services you provide. You might want to think about what are the measures you want to try to capture for the outcomes. So that's going to be kind of something to be thinking about as you think about what performance measures you want to choose to include with your BFO. Now, we've been talking a lot about performance measures and performance measurement, so maybe some definitions will be in line. So broadly speaking, performance measures are a quantifiable unit which provide information about the success of a program, department, service, or outcome people care about achieving or maintaining. It's very broad, and it can be a lot of different things, and it depends on it. So it's a very kind of catch-all term that lots of people use, but there's we can go and kind of break those performance measures into different types. We have our input measures. So those are the things that go into the process or service. Think about the human capital, the actual capital, the funds, the physical things you're bringing to it. Those are those input measures. Then we have our output measures. Once you kind of are working with those inputs, what are you actually producing on the outside, on the other side of it? What products, goods, services are resulting from all those inputs that you put into it? These are, the inputs are very easy to measure. Outputs are a little bit more difficult, but typically pretty easy to measure. And then you get to your outcome measures. These are like, what are you wanting to achieve as part of it? This is something we really want folks to focus on. You can't always have good outcome measures with your BFO process. Sometimes it's difficult and you go straight to outputs, but really focusing on outcomes is what we're interested in. So what are those things you want to achieve, and how are you tracking your progress on achieving those? These can be moderate or difficult and can be challenging to put together. If you need help coming up with some good performance outcome measures, reach out to the performance@Chattanooga.gov and we can help you out. And there's a level above that. These are these impact measures. So these are thinking about how are we affecting the long-term effects and impact of the things we're trying to do. So not just for this year, but for multiple years, and how deep is it going, and how can we directly tie what we're doing to those impacts we want to have. Now, that's very difficult to do and requires some rigorous evaluation and multi-year analysis, but it's something you can look at. And then we have our community indicators. These are these kind of usually typically lagging measures, but they tell us how our community is doing, what's the health of our community, and sometimes those are appropriate to look at as well. Typically, they're a year or two behind because they're at the national level and they are harder to track, and there's just takes time to get the data in. So when we're talking about performance measures, I think a lot of folks will be focusing on those output and outcome measures, and hopefully maybe some impact measures as well. We're trying to make it as easy as possible, so we have this layout for the BFO process in a simple sentence format. It's in order to have some kind of desired outcome, in this case, reduce violent crimes, this is who's going to do it, city or department or program, what are you going to do? Are you going to increase it? Are you going to decrease something? Are you going to maintain something at the current level that you think is a good level? So we'll do something to something, in this case, a metric. And this, we're going to say maybe reduce, and in this case, the metric will be violent crimes. And then by, at, or to, so it means by a certain percentage, or at a certain amount, or to a certain range. So one thing we're doing a little bit different in BFOs this year is allowing for ranges. So that means we recognize that for any process or program, you're going to have some normal variation, kind of ups and downs, and that's normal. And so that's built into the target. So you might have a target between 3 and 5%, as opposed to hitting it right at 4. Again, if you have any questions about that, we're going to be doing trainings afterwards. Speaking about targets, there's lots of, there's a kind of a maturity model for targets, starting with uncertainty. You don't know. It's a new program or service. So then you kind of baseline or look at other examples from other locations and jurisdictions. After that, you can go one of two ways, typically. You can become overconfident. So think, hey, I'm going to shoot for the stars, or you can become mediocre, where you just create a target that's so easy you'll get it all the time. Both of those don't really push you. Overconfidence, you discount very quickly and don't really strive towards. Mediocrity is easy to get, so you kind of quit striving as well. What we're really going for is kind of an accurate target that pushes you and challenges you in a way that's meaningful. That's number 4 target. And eventually getting to a stability where there's not a lot of variability in your targets and how you're delivering your services, and you have a lot of stability in actually achieving your target. And that's where we want to get all folks to. But we recognize it's a journey to that. So be thinking about that as you're setting your targets and what category you think you might be starting at in, and be aware of those pitfalls of overconfidence and mediocrity. When you're creating a measure, think about this as a checklist for creating high-value measures. How are you providing services to address, are you providing those services to address citywide problem that is related to an outcome of BFO, right? So can you directly tie it to our results map and what we're trying to achieve there? Will it help improve the lives of the Chattanoogans? Will it achieve the desired result, And that's where kind of, if you can kind of challenge yourself to focus more on those outcome and input and impact measures, that's better. Does it advance some of these Chattadata priorities? And also, do you have a plan for actually success in tracking and measuring things? You can have the best measure and the best intentions, but if you don't have the data, the team, and the way to track it, you're not going to be successful with it. To assist folks while they're working on this, we have a couple check-ins we do. For our departments, we do a monthly Performance 101 check-in. Again, this is data as a compass. We're checking to see what's going on, what are we seeing in the data, why are we seeing it, root cause analysis, and what are we going to do about it. For the agencies, we do quarterly check-ins with kind of getting us updates on how things are going, and we are encouraging this year regular departmental check-ins if you work closely with a department like a YFD or something like that, so that you can have they can have those conversations about how things are going and actually solve for problems in near real time. So that's about it for performance measures. There's a lot more we can talk about. Like I said, if you'd like to have some more direct assistance, you can reach out to performance@chattanooga.gov. But now I'm going to turn it over to Daisy to talk about kind of the impacts we're seeing from COVID and what that means for this budget cycle.
Hello, I'm Daisy Madison, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Chattanooga. At this time last year, we were in a comfortable position, projecting a 3% increase in revenues. As we were in our final stages of putting together a financial plan for the FY21, the coronavirus pandemic took hold of the U.S. economy and it went into a free fall. Retail sales plummeted, unemployment skyrocketed, businesses shuttered, and uncertainty abound. The fiscal impact of these economic changes were felt immediately in cities all across the country. Chattanoogans were confronted with not one, but two huge hits: the COVID-19 and the Easter tornado. In addition, the city and the nation were faced with a high level of social and political unrest, demonstrated by largely peaceful protest and increased citizen participation in the budgeting process. All these had a significant impact on the establishment of a financial plan, without a tax increase, mind you, and one that addresses the changing demands of the community, with an $8.4 million or 3.2% reduction in revenues, all while maintaining a strong fiscal position, as demonstrated by a AAA bond rating by Standard & Poor's. This was possible when other cities across the country were facing layoffs, furloughs, service reduction, and property tax increases. Made possible only because of the administration, in partnership with external agencies and community participants, working together to develop a plan that keeps Chattanoogans ahead of the curve and well poised to meet the continuing challenge we face during these unprecedented times. As you can see from this slide, the National League of Cities conducted a survey. Results were that nearly 90% of the cities responded felt they were less able in FY21 to meet the fiscal needs of their communities. This was a sentiment about the lack of fiscal capacity that had not been reported since the low point of the Great Recession. FY 2020 general fund revenues show zero growth. All major local tax revenue sources slowed in 2020 with an 11% decline in sales tax. The city's budget projects an 8 to 9% decline in sales taxes. On average, cities anticipate a 13% decline in the FY21 general fund revenues. The city's estimated decrease is $8.4 million or 3.2% reduction. While hopeful that we will meet this year's projection, we are still mindful and watchful of the ongoing COVID-19 and its impact on our communities. We could expect even more reductions in FY22 if the pandemic continues. According to a recent Brookings research publication, just as in other economic downturns, the pandemic reduced state and local revenues. That's not news to anyone. Decline in sales and other taxes and fees are larger than historical experience would suggest, because consumption has sharply declined and people are staying home, as they should. But this means that revenues from taxes and fees on hotels, airports, and motor fuel have plummeted. The report projects that state and local government revenues nationwide will decline $155 billion in 2020, $167 billion in 2021, and $145 billion in 2022. This is about a 5.5 to a 4.7% decline. Now, while these numbers are huge relative to Chattanooga, comparable numbers for the Chattanooga General Fund range from $12 million to $14 million decrease in revenues. For all budgeted general city funds, this represents $16.5 to $20 million decrease in revenues. To recoup this loss in general fund revenue alone would require a 25 to 28 cent tax increase. While federal aid to state and local governments have offset some of these shortfalls in FY21, they are expected to continue for several years to come. So without promise of federal assistance, local governments have to cut spending now to prepare for these future imbalances. We are at the forefront of the response to the pandemic in our communities. And therefore, as local governments, we need to increase our typical funding to provide for the crucial health services and other assistance communities need to adapt to the social distancing guidelines. How do we do this? In an environment of increasing service demand and declining revenues. We do it with the help of people like you. Here, as we participate in the budgeting for outcome process, looking for innovative ways from you to help us meet these challenges. This is the core of the BFO process, maximizing service delivery with limited resources, doing more with less. Thank you for your continued participation in developing the annual financial plan for the City of Chattanooga. I look forward to working with you all in the months to come.
Hi, I'm Tanika Jackson. I am the Deputy CFO here at the City of Chattanooga. The table that you see presented before you today is just a snapshot of the current year and past 2 years' budget allocation by results area. The major takeaway from the slide is that we show a reduction in our overall operating budget by 3.23%. That's an $8 million decrease from the previous year's budget. The reduced amount is based on the fiscal impact of the pandemic. Essential costs took a hit as well. Typically, these ongoing costs such as pension, healthcare, and debt service apply an additional burden to the city's budget and normally cannot be postponed. However, you will see a 6.1% decrease in this particular area. And this is for the current year, and this is due to the city's delay in implementing the compensation study and a reduction in our debt payment. The overall decrease in the budget translates into less available dollars being allocated to the results area. That's a 2.81% decrease at the bottom right corner of the screen. As Daisy mentioned in the previous slide, that based on a national trend, we could experience an estimated loss of up to $14 million in general fund revenues for this year. We are not anticipating any revenue growth for the fiscal year 2022 budget cycle, and finance staff will continue to assess our incoming revenues monthly to project out where we may end the fiscal year, as well as forecast out expected revenues for the FY22 fiscal year. So with that being said, we all must continue to deliberate and identify measurable improvements to whatever it is we are trying to make better through the BFO process. FY22 presents a challenging opportunity as the pandemic has created an environment of less revenues, and public outcry for increased investments in social services programs that have direct impact to individuals and families and communities are key. Andrew Klein's central idea for the BFO is that budgeting should be about purchasing results or getting value for your money. So as an offer writer, you must demonstrate through your submission the approach your organization or city department will take to achieve big outcomes through partnerships, collaboration, ingenuity, and foresight. Hard decisions will need to be made this upcoming budget cycle. As you prepare your offer, reflect on these fundamental questions. Does my offer demonstrate more results for the same money? Does my offer demonstrate the same results for less money? And or does my offer demonstrate more results for less money? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Maura Black-Sullivan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the City of Chattanooga. I'm going to talk to you about some of the lessons we learned from last year and how we're going to approach that this year. One of the things that we heard from you last year, offer writers want to see last year's offers in the app. Okay, we did it. Actually, IT did it. Thank you so much to our IT department for figuring out how to do this and make it possible for offer writers to see what you submitted last year in its entirety in the app. You will now be able to edit that or abandon it. And of course, you can always add in a brand new offer. Another thing that we heard from you is that you want more continual community engagement. I hear ya. Now COVID, how do we do that? So we're working on some plans that you'll hear about from Tyler Yunt. We'll have community engagement around 3 different online community engagement meetings, and we will have online opportunities for people to contribute. And then we're also thinking about some new ways to engage people where they are. A little bit more about that in my next slide. Another thing that we heard from you is that you would like more feedback through the process. Okay, let's do that. Thanks for asking. The results team leads will be available to do one-on-one sessions, coaching sessions with offer writers, and we will have what we fondly called last year a pitch session. Not too many people took advantage of the pitch session opportunity last year, but we're going to try it again this year, and we hope that it will help you out. It's a time when, you remember back in college when your professor let you give a rough draft? That you could talk through your idea for your paper, your essay, and get feedback? Well, that's what we're doing. So Chelsea Sadler, my colleague, will be giving you more information about the pitch session next. Another thing that we heard internally, is that we really would like to add a racial equity lens to the work that we do. So what does that look like? What does it mean to add a racial equity lens to the work that you do? Well, the City of Chattanooga has been engaged with GARE, the Governmental Alliance for Racial Equity, for the last year or so. And as a city government, we have worked together to write a racial equity action plan for our government. And we have begun testing it out with some pilot projects. And now we're ready to roll it into our budgeting process. So what do I need to do to put a racial equity lens on the work that I do? Well, we have a toolkit. There's a toolkit that you can use, and all you need to do is ask yourself these 6 questions. Number 1, is my outcome clear? So think about your proposal. You're already doing that in your BFO work, right? So we're really ahead of the game. You're already thinking about, is my outcome clear? Is what I am trying to do for the people of Chattanooga, is it clear? Does it make sense what I'm trying to do? But with a racial equity lens, the reason that it's important to have that clear outcome is because that's the way that you communicate what you're doing to all the communities that you are affecting with that outcome. And if you don't have a clear outcome, it's hard for people to contribute to or give you input on how that would affect their community. Data. So this is where measurement matters. Again, we are ahead of the game with the great work that we do around our performance measurement, but how does that reflect upon and relate to racial equity? Start thinking about how you are doing what you do, why you are doing what you're doing, and do you have the data behind it? Use the data to answer, will this proposal have impacts in specific geographic areas of the city? And what are the racial demographics of those living in that area? What does the population level data tell us about existing racial inequities and root causes for the community in which I'll be working to achieve my outcome? What are the data gaps around my desired outcome? These are questions that it's important for you to ask while you're devising your offer. And of course, our performance open data and performance management team can help you out with that. Third question, how have communities been engaged, and are there opportunities to expand that? It's never enough to just review the data, because if you only do that, guess what? You're guilty of a sumicide. Assume-aside is when you are assuming that your proposed outcome will impact a community in a certain way. Involving the community in all aspects of your project is so important. And have you been careful to engage in varied ways? Your communication reach needs to be wide enough to reach all communities, including those that have been traditionally disenfranchised. Some tips and tools you can use in this engagement is to provide different methods for people to engage so that you hear all voices. Use trusted advocates or engagement liaisons to collect information from known underrepresented, those who are known to be unrepresented in public processes. So those are some tips, and we'll have more as we move forward. Fourth, who benefits and who is burdened? So this is the analysis and strategy phase. So now you've had an idea to reach an outcome, you've reviewed the data, you've engaged with the community, and now it's time to review your idea based on that data and community input. It's really important because now you've actually heard from folks and you've looked at the data, and now it's time to be sure that you were on the right track. Ask yourself who will benefit from and who will be burdened by this proposal. What are my strategies for advancing racial equity or mitigating unintended consequences? And are there complementary strategies that we should implement? What are ways that we could leverage what our existing partnerships are to strengthen and maximize our impact? Fifth, does my implementation plan work? So now, based on that analysis and your strategic thinking, think back about your implementation plan, refine that, and reassess it. Look at it honestly. Do I have the personnel to make this work? And if you don't, again, go back to that partnership piece. Can I leverage partnerships that I have in the community to help build out the resource network that we need to make this outcome successful for the people of Chattanooga? And sixth, how will I be accountable in the future for my results? Well, again, we're a little ahead of the game on that here in Chattanooga with our budgeting for outcomes process and our fabulous work with our OpMod, the Open Data and Performance Management team. But this will be your time to find out how you will be accountable for the outcomes in the future and how you will communicate those successes and failures based upon your racial equity lens. So those are our new things for 2022. Good luck, offer writers, and look forward to talking with you soon.
Hi everyone, I'm Chelsea Sadler, Results Team Lead for High Performing Government, as well as one of the friendly faces behind BFO at Chattanooga.gov, our online help desk email. So last year, a new thing that we implemented was the pitch, and we did this in between our pre-submission and initial offer phases. So this year, we're going to continue it because we got such a great response last year. The only difference is that the pitch will be virtual this year. So what is the pitch? This is a time for you as an offer writer to come before myself and other members of the leadership team and talk about the offer that you want to submit in the initial phase. That way we can ask you questions, give you some guidelines if you're new to the BFO process, as well as ask questions for ourselves when it comes to the programmatic and the fiscal implementation of your offer. The pitch is not mandatory to submit an initial offer, but anyone is welcome to come and pitch their ideas. The pitch will be 15 minutes of your time for you to go over exactly what the offer is going to look like, and as well ask us any questions that you might want answers from us. This is a voluntary first come, first served opportunity. So how do you sign up? You can go to BFO.chattanooga.gov and go under the news pages and go to the information about the pitches, and you can sign up via a Google Calendar. Go ahead and grab one of the 15-minute slots, one slot per offer, please, and we will be holding them on December 2nd, December 4th, and December 7th on Zoom. And again, if you have any questions about the pitch or anything else, you can email us at bfo.chattanooga.gov. Next, we're going to have Mr. Tony Sammons come and talk to you about the BFO general phases.
Thank you, Chelsea. I'm Tony Sammons. I serve as the Deputy Chief Operating Officer for the city. And it's always been my pleasure to be actively engaged with my team members as we bring on each year our budgeting for outcomes process. Some of the next things that we'd like to share with you is actually the components of the BFO process. We have 3 stages. We have the pre-submission stage, the initial stage, and the final stage. Pre-submissions is primarily just providing us a summary, a short paragraph as to what your offer is entailing. Now, pre-submission is only needed for those that are submitting new offers. For those offers that are reoccurring, there's no need to submit a pre-submittal. In the initial stage, this is where, as Mara indicated earlier, that you're going to provide more information, more details about the offer that you're submitting. You're going to give us as much meat for the results teams to be able to clearly understand what you're trying to convey, who you're trying to serve, what outcomes you're looking to achieve, and what dollar value you will be able to do that with. Next, we have the initial submission. In the initial submission, this is where you will provide more detailed information about your offer. You will provide detailed information as to who you're serving, what you're trying to achieve, what your outcomes you're looking to achieve, and the dollar value it will take to see that come to a realization. In the final stage, this is after you've received feedback from our results teams. They will provide you helpful information that will allow you to streamline or to better clarify certain questions that they may have after the initial review. And then your final, this is the final product that you're submitting. And in that final, you want to make sure everything is good and clear, it's understandable, and that the results teams, when they're reviewing your product, they know exactly what you're trying to achieve, who you're trying to serve, and what outcomes you can realistically achieve within this fiscal year. We'll have the same process for our capital projects. They too have the pre-submittal, initial, and final phases of this process. In the pre-submittals, again, only new offers are required to submit a pre-submittal. Any reoccurring offers, we look to see those in the initial phase. One item that we want to make sure that you keep front of mind is where to find any and all information related to the BFO. You can find that on our website, and it's BFO.Chattanooga.gov. It's easy to remember. Again, it's BFO.Chattanooga.gov. And on this location, you'll find a host of information. The information that was shared with us, you'll see that again, we're recording this for your convenience. And you'll also find on our website a series of tutorials that will walk you through the process from registration through the process of how to submit your offer. Let me share with you our submission deadlines. First, our pre-submittal deadline will be November the 16th, 2020. Our initial offer deadline will be January the 11th, 2021. And our final submission of offers, the deadline will be February the 22nd, 2021. Each of those deadlines, each of those dates, the cutoff time will be at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not 4:35, not 5 o'clock, not making a phone call to the BFO team saying, hey, I'm just trying to get that in. No, we'd love for you to have all your submittals in before 4:30 p.m. This will allow our team to move forward in actively reviewing and processing those offers as they come in. So again, the deadlines for our submittals, the pre-submittals must be in by 4:30 p.m. on November the 16th, and that's for new offers only. The initial offer deadline will be January the 11th, 2021 at 4:30 p.m. and the final offer submission deadline will be February the 22nd at 4:30 p.m. I also want to share with you the dates for our community engagement sessions. Those dates will be November the 9th, November the 12th, and November 16th. Each of those sessions will start promptly at 5:30 p.m. and will last until 7 o'clock p.m. each night. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tyler Yount, who will give you greater details concerning our community engagement sessions.
Hi, I'm Tyler Yount. I'm the results team leader for Growing Economy, and I'm also in charge of our community engagement for our budget process. This year, things are going to look a little bit differently due to COVID-19. We'll still have 3 sessions for hearing from our residents about their priorities for the budget year, but we'll be conducting these resident engagement sessions over Zoom. They can be joined either by a computer or a phone from wherever you are. For those who don't feel comfortable using Zoom, we'll also have other options for them to give their feedback. We'll have Dropbox locations at our public library branches for any resident to complete a paper version of the feedback survey. There'll also be an online survey, as always, for people to complete on their own if they can't join a session. During each session, we'll start with a brief education on our budget and our budget process. Then we'll move into breakout rooms via Zoom with a city staff person facilitating and another serving as a scribe to capture the discussion. All of this feedback will be compiled in an interactive report and shared with offer writers and the public in mid-December. Please encourage everyone that you know to attend and give their feedback. We want to hear from them and we don't want anybody to miss out on this opportunity to engage.
All right, at this time, we'd like to introduce our team, those individuals who are heavily engaged in the BFO process from beginning to end. We'll start with our results team leads. First, Mr. Kerry Hayes. He's our chief of staff, and he will serve as the lead for our Stronger Neighborhoods results area. Next, leading our Safer Streets results area will be Ms. Sharita Allen, the Deputy Administrator for Economic Development. Joining her is our Deputy Chief of Staff, Mr. Jermaine Freeman. In our Growing Economy results area, this will be led by our own Mr. Tyler Yount. He is the Director of Special Projects. Leading our High Performing Government results area will be our own Ms. Chelsea Sadler, our Grant Specialist. And leading our Smarter Students, Stronger Family results area will be Ms. Katie Wells, who is our Senior Policy Analyst, and Ms. Rochelle Albright, our Communications Director. Leading our BFO performance results will be Mr. Tim Moreland. He is our Office of Performance Management and Open Data Director. You heard earlier from Mr. Tyler Yount as it relates to our communication engagement. Our communication and engagement team consists of Mr. Tyler Yount, Ms. Katie Wells, and Ms. Rochelle Albright. From the financial side of our BFO process, it would be led by our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Daisy Madison. And along with her would be our Management and Budget Analyst. We have Ms. Frida Forshey, Teresa D. Donato, Kendra Yates, Jason Silvers, Chris Brown, and Ms. Dora Florence. From our capital side, our capital planning process will be led by Mr. Justin Steinman and Ms. Destiny Richardson. And we couldn't complete our work without having the direction of our own Chief Operating Officer, Ms. Mara Black Sullivan. Once again, I want to recap those dates because we want to make sure they are heavily ingrained in your mind so you won't miss the opportunity of submitting your offers. All of the pre-submittals, both the general and capital pre-submissions, the deadline will be November the 16th at 4:30 p.m. All initial offers will be due January the 11th at 4:30 p.m. and the final offers will be due February the 22nd at 4:30 p.m. And again, to give you those dates for the community engagement, they will be November the 9th, November 12th, and November 16th, all beginning at 5:30 p.m. and ending at 7 o'clock p.m. Also remember our BFO website, BFO.chattanooga.gov. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can also send your request via email at BFO@chattanooga.gov. So just hang on a little bit. We're going to field any questions that you may have from the information that's been shared with you.
Okay, so we had a few questions earlier in the FAQ, so I wanted to go over those. One being the correct email addresses if you need any kind of support for the BFO process. So if you have any kind of questions that has to do with performance, part of your offers, or just need some assistance or to think through that process, you can email performance@chattanooga.gov, and Tim Moreland or one of his members of OpMod are happy to help you and kind of walk you through those correct steps. Thanks, Tim, for giving a wave. Also, if you have any questions about the BFO process, whether it's how to create an account on the website, how to make sure you're submitting your offers if you get locked out, any questions about the actual offer process, deadlines, anything like that, feel free to email BFO@chattanooga.gov. Myself, along with Tony, Chris, and quite a few other members, including our capital team, are a part of that email. So someone will see it and will quickly respond to you. Also, we will be updating our website today, as well as posting these presentations and emailing them out to you. So if you did miss something or you're rewatching this and have another question, again, feel free to email us at BFO@chattanooga.gov. Then we also had a question, thank you, Erica, asking about pre-submission. So if you had an offer that was funded this past fiscal year, FY21, and you are going to apply and submit for that same offer for FY22, you do not have to submit a pre-submission. And pre-submissions are not required for anyone, but if you are wanting to submit a new offer this year, pre-submission is a good time to submit it. And then what we do is we give it a green light, yellow light, red light, and just some more feedback for you. And so our leadership team looks at that, and it's just a good way to gauge whether what you're submitting, how it's going to go for the rest of the process. And this also is a really great time to take advantage of our pitch session that we talked about earlier. So if you have a new offer that you want some verbal feedback about, please sign up for those pitch sessions. And I think that is all we had for the FAQ. So I'm going to send it over to Chris. And Chris, do you want to talk about our next two sessions we will have after this?
Yes, thank you, Chelsea. We actually have two additional sessions that we have broken up. The next one is for our external partners and agencies about the agency-related funding. That'll be start at approximately 3 p.m. today. I have put those links inside of the chat. And if you register for those events, you should have received an email. If you do have issues logging in, email us. We're right here. We're able to quickly get you into those sessions. Again, these sessions are recorded. So again, 3 p.m. for the agency, which is coming up next, and then 3:30 will follow directly at another link for the capital related funding. So I'll throw it back over to Mr. Sammons, who will close us out and kind of give us any final words before we move on.
Thanks, Chris and Chelsea. Final words. I think you've heard it all within the presentation. Started out with Councilwoman Burrs giving us the lead in as to what information you were to expect. Of course, Mayor Burt giving us that directive, which we have followed for the last 8 years in preparing our budget. You've heard from many of our team members how this process works. And we have 2 additional sessions that we would like for you to participate in to gain additional information as it relates to our capital improvement projects, as well as for our agencies. We are, as Chris indicated, recording this session and providing this on our website where you can utilize it at your discretion, at your comfort, where you can play it over and over and over again to ensure that you receive the information that you have. We've given you our contact information with any additional questions that you have. And before we close out, if there are any other questions, please put that in the Q&A and we'll try to get that answered as quickly as possible before closing this out. If not, we will close the session out, and we thank you all for participating. We had the largest number of participants who registered for this session. As Councilwoman Burrs indicated earlier, we had over 230 plus registrants, and that's fantastic for one session. And we are excited about this year. Yes, we are facing some challenges, but we know we can get through this, and actively engage in our community and hearing your voices and hearing your thoughts. We will develop the budget that will address our needs and our concerns, as we always try to. And with your help, we know we'll be successful. So if there's no additional questions that we have to respond to, I want to thank each and every one of my partners who helped develop this. I'm not going to call names because I know I would forget someone. Each and every person who participated in this is extremely important, and our work just begins at the conclusion of our sessions. So, and I want to thank each and every one of you for participating. And as we go through this process, know that we're here to respond to you as quickly as we can. And we want to make sure that you're successful. Once your offers are successful, we know we're going to be successful in addressing the needs of our community. Thank you all very much.